Hey there, dart nerds, double mechanics, and tungsten tacticians. Welcome back to Dart Brain, the podcast where your dartboard never lies, but your practice diary definitely does. Oh, sure, the diary looks professional. Maybe it even has neat little boxes and color-coded highlights. But if we put it on trial, the evidence would crumble faster than Shane's confidence after missing a double 16. Today, we're talking about practice. Not the game, not the match, not the finals. We're talking about practice. Here's what I mean. Your dartboard is brutally honest. It doesn't care what mood you're in, how much you practiced yesterday, or whether Mercury is in retrograde. If you hit, it rewards you. If you miss, it tells the truth. Meanwhile, your practice diary is a slippery little politician. It conveniently forgets all the double ones, exaggerates how many double 20s you nailed, and insists that the 3 hours you spent working on finishing totally counts, even though 2 of those hours were scrolling through Facebook videos about new grip secrets. Now, before you feel too smug, here's the truth. Most dart players, myself included, have been guilty of practicing the wrong way. We all fall into the same traps: throwing without a plan, chasing comfort instead of progress, and mistaking quantity for quality. If darts were graded on effort alone, we'd all be A+ students. But darts doesn't care about effort, it cares about results, and that's where psychology steps in. Today's episode is about practice, not just the mechanical side of throwing darts, but the mental, psychological engine that makes practice work. We're going to unpack the science of practice and apply it to darts in a way that helps you stop wasting time and start actually improving. Because let's be honest, darts players practice a lot, sometimes too much. Some of us live in the practice room, chucking darts for hours, convinced that sheer volume is the path to greatness. But volume without structure is just noise. It's like writing pages of gibberish and calling it a novel. Sports psychology has been studying this for decades. There is some famous research on deliberate practice that shows us that improvement doesn't come from mindless repetition. It comes from structured, feedback-rich, goal-driven practice that constantly stretches your skills. In other words, if your practice feels easy, you're not getting better. If it feels uncomfortable, frustrating, and a little bit humbling, congratulations, you're doing it right. But here's the problem. Our brains don't like discomfort. Your chimp brain, the emotional, impulsive side of you, wants comfort, routine, and immediate dopamine. It wants you to stand at the oche, hit your favorite number 100 times, and feel good about yourself. The professor brain, the rational, strategic side, knows better. It wants you to rotate targets, track statistics, and push just past your comfort zone. That's where growth happens. And here's the kicker. Practice isn't just about skill. It's about training your chimp and professor brains to work together. It's about building guardians, confidence, commitment, resilience, while starving your gremlins, neglect, distraction, and self-doubt. The board doesn't care who wins, but your performance absolutely does. Let's pause for a Shane story, because if you're new here, you need to understand who this guy is. Shane is that imaginary but suspiciously familiar player we all know. He's the dart world's equivalent of a Karen. He's always got an excuse, always thinking he's working harder than everyone else, and always has a reason why the universe is conspiring against him. Picture this. Shane shows up at league night with a brand new set of darts, his 3rd set this month, and says, "These ones are the game changers. I practiced for 4 hours last night. I'm dialed in." Fast forward 20 minutes, he's missed 5 doubles in a row and muttering that the chalker's breathing too loud. The lesson here isn't that Shane is funny, though he is. It's that most of us are Shane, at least sometimes. We lie to ourselves about practice. We tell ourselves we're working hard, but we're really just jumping around keeping the chimp comfortable. And if we don't call that out, if we don't shine a light on our own Shane-ness, then we're never actually moving forward. So let's strip this down to its real purpose. Practice isn't about filling time. It's not about collecting imaginary points in your practice diary. It's about preparing for performance. Everything you do in practice is either helping you perform under pressure or it's just entertainment. Think about it this way. When you step on stage or into league or just into your buddy's garage with $10 on the line, you don't get to choose your circumstances. You don't get to warm up for an hour and a half on bull before every checkout. You don't get to take 10 attempts at the same double until you finally hit it. You get one shot. Pressure is instant, unforgiving, and unfiltered. So why would you train in conditions that never mimic that? Why would you spend all your practice hours reinforcing comfort when competition is chaos? It doesn't make sense, unless, of course, you're letting the chimp set your practice plan. This is where the Dart Brain framework comes in. Practice isn't just about mechanics, it's about psychology. Every session is an opportunity to train your guardians or feed your gremlins. Skip practice? It's neglect winning. Show up anyway? Commitment takes the point. Let yourself get distracted by your phone? Distractions celebrate. Turn off your phone and lock in? Controls grow stronger. Miss 5 doubles in a row and spiral into self-doubt? That's a gremlin victory. Keep calm, reset, and refocus. Confidence gains ground. Every throw is a vote. Every session is a battle. The dartboard keeps score on accuracy, but your brain keeps score on which forces, guardians or gremlins, you're training. So here's what we're going to do in this episode. First, we'll look at why most practice is pointless and how to spot when you're wasting your own time. Then we'll break down the psychology of effective practice, how to structure your sessions so the professor brain runs the show, not the chimp. We'll dive into game-like practice, how to bring pressure, variety, and competition into your training so you can actually perform when it counts. We'll explore how practice can train your focus, not just your accuracy, and why that matters more than most players think. We'll tackle the gremlins head-on, how to beat neglect, distractions, and self-doubt in the practice room. And finally, we'll talk about practice to performance transfer, the holy grail of sports psychology, how to make sure your A game shows up when the lights are the brightest. By the end of today's episode, you won't know what to practice, you'll know how to practice in a way that builds your guardians, tames your chimp, and actually makes you a stronger competitor. And if nothing else, you'll have at least a dozen new reasons to laugh at Shane, which, let's be honest, is its own kind of guardian. All right, so let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Most darts practice is about as useful as a chocolate dartboard. It looks good from a distance, it feels like you're doing the right thing, but in reality, it's melting in your hands and attracting ants. Here's the thing. If you ask darts players how often they practice, you'll get big numbers. 3 hours a day, every night after work, as much as Phil Taylor in his prime. But then you look at the actual results and it doesn't add up. If practice really made perfect, then Shane, bless his delusional little heart, should be world champion by now. Instead, he's the undisputed king of hitting 111 while aiming for 20. So why is it that so much practice doesn't actually make us better? Why is it that players can log long hours at the hockey and still fold under pressure, or still miss the same doubles week after week? The answers lie in the difference between doing something and training something. I'm talking about repetition versus deliberate practice. Here's where sports psychology swoops in with a big gotcha. In the early 90s, psychologist K. Anders Ericsson introduced the concept of deliberate practice. His research showed that elite performers, musicians, chess masters, athletes, didn't just get great by putting in the hours. They got great by making those hours count. Deliberate practice has 3 key ingredients: clear, specific goals, immediate feedback, and a stretch zone challenge. Let's go through those one more time. Deliberate practice has 3 key ingredients: clear, specific goals. It's not, I'll throw darts for an hour. It's, I'll hit double 16 10 times in a row or die trying. Immediate feedback. If you don't know whether you're improving, you're not. This can come from a coach, a practice partner, or if you're desperate, a brutally honest spouse. You can also get immediate feedback from the statistics provided by tools like Dart Connect and Scolia. Stretch zone challenge. You have to work right at the edge of your ability, where failure is frequent but instructive. If you're comfortable, you're coasting. Now compare that to the average practice session. You wander to the board, lob darts at the 20s until your arm hurts, throw a few bulls for fun, and declare yourself ready for match night. That's not deliberate practice. That's occupational therapy for your chimp. Why do we do this? Why do we settle for empty reps? Simple. Because your chimp brain loves it. The chimp is your emotional, impulsive, comfort-seeking mind. It doesn't care about long-term improvement. It cares about feeling good right now. And nothing feels better to the chimp than standing at the hockey, throwing at your favorite target, and hitting it enough times to feel like a genius. The chimp whispers, "Look at you, mate. 140s all day. You're basically Michael Van Gerwen." Don't worry about doubles. They'll sort themselves out. 3 hours of bulls is definitely going to make you a champion. Meanwhile, your professor brain, the rational strategic side, is pulling out its hair. It knows you should be working on your weak spots, tracking your accuracy, and mixing in pressure drills. But the professor is quiet, more logical, less sexy. The chimp's instant dopamine hit usually wins the argument. Let's bring Shane into this. Shane is a master of logging hours without logging progress. He'll proudly announce, "I practiced for 4 hours last night." But if you look closely, here's what he really did. Hour 1, warmed up hitting the triple 20. Hour 2, still warming up hitting the triple 20 and the bull if it's really blocked. Hour 3, complaining his darts don't feel right. And Hour 4, filming himself hitting 180, posting it online, and calling it a day. Shane walks away feeling like he trained hard. His chimp brain is thrilled. His professor brain, meanwhile, has filed for divorce. And when match night comes, Shane collapses under pressure. Why? Because he never practiced under pressure. He practiced feeling good, and darts doesn't reward feeling good, it rewards being good. Pointless practice is a breeding ground for gremlins. Neglect, skipping structured drills because I don't feel like it. Distractions, phone buzzes, TV on, brain halfway to Netflix. Self-doubt, missing in practice convinces you you'll miss in competition. And fatigue, practicing for too long without purpose just drains energy. Each gremlin thrives when you let your chimp brain run your practice sessions. And once they've grown fat and happy in practice, they're going to follow you right into competition. On the flip side, effective practice is where you build guardians. Commitment, showing up on schedule, even when you don't feel like it. Controls, eliminating distractions and focusing deeply. Confidence, proving to yourself you can hit doubles under pressure. And resilience, missing, recovering, and still pressing forward. But here's the catch. These guardians don't grow when practice is easy. They only grow when practice is structured, challenging, and sometimes uncomfortable. Another myth that keeps players stuck is the idea that more is always better. If I practice for 3 hours, I'll improve 3 times as fast as if I practice for 1 hour. Wrong. Without structure, 3 hours is just 3 times the waste. People love to say practice makes perfect. You've probably heard the magical 10,000 hours number tossed around. Like if you just keep throwing for long enough, you'll wake up one day as Phil Taylor. But here's the reality. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. The habits you repeat are the ones that stick. So if your practice is sloppy, distracted, or nothing like the pressure cooker of real competition, guess what? You're not building tournament-ready skills. You're just hardwiring comfort zone darts. And when you step into a match, those comfy little habits suddenly look about as useful as Shane's excuses. Think about lifting weights. If you curl 5 pounds for 3 hours, you don't get any stronger. You just get bored and maybe a repetitive strain injury. But if you lift the right weight with the right form for the right sets and reps, you improve. Practice is the same. 15 minutes of structured, deliberate, focused practice beats 3 hours of aimless chucking every single time. Here's a quick self-test. If I walked into your practice room right now and asked you, what's your goal for this session? Could you answer without hesitation? If you say, just to get better, congratulations, pointless practice. If you say, I'm working on hitting double 16 in under 3 darts 10 times in a row, congratulations, Professor Brain is driving. Shane's answer, of course, would be, my goal is to go viral on TikTok. The reason most practice is pointless isn't that players don't care. It's that we let the chimp set the agenda. We chase comfort instead of growth. We think hours equal progress. We mistake entertainment for improvement. But here's the hopeful bit. Once you recognize this, you can flip the script. You can let the Professor Brain take the wheel, structure your sessions deliberately, and actually build the guardians that matter. Because practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Whatever you rehearse, you reinforce. And if what you're rehearsing is lazy, distracted, chimp-driven comfort work, well, don't be surprised when that's exactly what shows up on match night. Here's the good news about practice. It can work. It can turn you from a shaky at the Aki Shane into confident, composed, guardian-fueled greatness. The bad news? That only happens if you do it right, and very few players actually do it right. Most people think of practice as time spent at the board. But that's like saying exercise is time spent at the gym. Sure, technically true. But if all you do at the gym is lean on the bench press machine, sip a protein shake, and scroll Instagram, you're not getting stronger. You're just getting really good at loitering. So let's talk about what effective practice actually looks like from a psychological standpoint. Rule 1. Go in with a plan. The single biggest difference between elite athletes and everybody else is that elite athletes know what they're practicing before they start. Every session has a target. Every drill has a purpose. Tonight, I'm working on first dart accuracy into the 20. I'm drilling checkouts from 60 to 100. I'm building consistency on double 16 under fatigue. That's a plan. Shane's plan? Hit some good shots, which is about as useful as saying that your financial plan is get rich somehow. Sports psychology calls this goal setting. Go figure. And the research is overwhelming. Research shows that specific, measurable goals drive far higher performance than vague intentions. When your professor brain sets clear objectives, your chimp brain can't wander off into throw whatever feels nice territory. Now, you probably imagined goal setting was going to be part of this podcast at some point, but you were probably thinking about performance goals. Practice goals are incredibly important, and they're what sets the table for you to perform well in competition. You're creating an environment more like the environment you'll play. Rule 2. Practice where you're weak. Nobody likes doing what they're bad at. Your chimp hates it. It sulks, it whines, it whispers, "We don't need doubles, mate. Just throw at the 180. But here's the paradox. If you never practice your weaknesses, they never stop being weaknesses. Effective practice forces you to live in that uncomfortable zone where misses happen often. That's where your resilience guardian gets its reps in. Each time you reset, refocus, and go again without spiraling into chimp tantrums, you're wiring in composure. Shane refuses to do this. He says, "I don't bother with doubles in practice because I'll hit them in the match. The throw is the same." That's like saying, "I don't practice driving in traffic because I'll figure it out when I hit the freeway." Probably don't go driving with Shane. Rule number 3, feedback or it didn't happen. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And yet most players finish a session with no idea of what they actually accomplished. Felt good is not a data point. Feedback can come in a few forms. It could come as statistics, tracking your scoring averages, your double hit rates, your first dart accuracy. Tools like Dart Connect and Scolia are brilliant for this. It could be video. Yes, it's painful to watch yourself throw. Do it anyway. You'll spot things your chimp happily ignores. And external eyes, a coach, teammate, or even a brutally honest friend who isn't afraid to say, "Mate, your follow-through looks like you're swatting a fly." You're trying to close the gap between what you think you're doing and what you're actually doing. Rule 4. Structure trumps duration. We've touched on this already, but it's worth hammering home. Effective practice isn't about logging the most hours. It's about what you do with those hours. Research on motor learning shows that structured, variable practice improves retention and transfer way more than repetitive, blocked practice. Translation: mixing things up helps your brain learn better. One of my favorite examples comes from the book Make It Stick. Researchers took 2 groups of baseball players for batting practice. Group A did blocked practice, 30 pitches in a row of the same type, 30 fastballs, 30 curveballs, 30 changeups. Group B did interleaved practice, the same number of pitches but mixed up randomly, fastball, curveball, changeup, fastball, changeup, and so on. At the end of the practice, the blocked group looked like superstars. They were dialed in, timing the pitches perfectly, crushing ball after ball. The interleaved group looked awful, missing more swings, struggling to adapt, feeling frustrated. But here's the twist. When they were tested later against pitchers throwing randomly, like in an actual baseball game, the interleaved group dominated. They had trained their brains to recognize and adapt to different situations instead of just grooving one predictable rhythm. It's kind of like working your way around the board or working transition shots rather than just getting into a groove on one predictable throw at the triple 20. Most players do blocked practice for checkouts. They'll stand there and hammer the same finish for 20 minutes straight. "I'm going to hit double 16 until it cries uncle." And yeah, by the end, they're nailing it. But come match night, when they need 81, they look like Shane trying to remember his PIN number. Instead, try interleaf practice. Write down 6 common checkouts. Then roll a dice or use a random number generator on your phone to decide which one you'll attempt next. Play each checkout as if it were a real game. 3 darts, and if you miss, move on to the next random number. You can do this as a competition. How many hits you have versus how many misses you have. And if you continue to perform this again and again and keep track of it in a performance journal, you'll start to see that you set high scores for yourself for how many attempts you've made. Here's why it works. Every turn, your brain has to reset, plan, and adapt. You don't get into a comfy groove. You have to recognize the situation and choose the right shot, just like you would in competition. It feels messier, and you'll miss more often during practice, but that's the point. Your professor brain is getting the reps it actually needs while your chimp sulks in the corner. So instead of mindlessly throwing at the same number for an hour, you'd be far better off with 3 15-minute blocks, one on scoring, one on checkouts, and one on doubles under pressure. Now, I know I just said that blocked practice isn't as good as interleave practice, and then I just suggested 3 15-minute blocks. Well, what you do with those blocks can be different. When you're working on scoring, you could work on transitions, where you throw one dart at the 20, one at the 19, one at the 18. On checkouts, you can vary which checkouts you're taking out or whether or not you need to hit a triple before you hit the checkout. And on doubles, you can move from different doubles around the board or different finishes, such as 41 to 60. There are lots of ways to interleave the practice rather than just throwing at the same number again and again. Rule number 5, end with a win. This one's sneaky. Practice should usually end on something you can succeed at. Why? Because your brain loves closure. If you finish every session missing doubles until you want to throw your darts in the trash, you'll train the chimp to dread practice. End with a small victory. Maybe a favorite double you're good at. A quick round where you can finish strong. Maybe it's throwing a 15, 18, or 21 darter, or maybe it's just playing around the world on the doubles. That keeps the confidence guardian topped up and eager for the next time. Shane naturally always ends practice by slamming his darts down and yelling about how his board is rigged, which is technically ending with a win, just for his gremlins. All right, let's zoom out. In every practice session, there's a battle between the chimp and the professor. The chimp wants comfort, repetition, and ego boosts. The professor wants structure, challenge, and honest data. When the chimp wins, you feed your gremlins. When the professor wins, you strengthen your guardians. That's the psychology of practice in one sentence. The trick is to set up your environment so the professor has the advantage before you even start. That means you write down your goals for the session, you set timers or drills so that you can't drift into autopilot, and you track something measurable so you have real feedback. Do this and your chimp will complain. But it also starts to learn. Over time, the chimp becomes less of a saboteur and more of a passenger. It still wants comfort, but it's forced to adapt to the professor's system. Effective practice isn't just about getting better at darts. It's about training your brain to perform in the same mental states you'll face in competition. It's where you practice emotional regulation, build confidence, and learn to focus. If you let practice slide into chimp-led comfort sessions, you're rehearsing weakness. If you let the professor lead, you're rehearsing strength. And here's one last insight. Practice doesn't just make permanent. It makes permanent and predictable. You will play in competition the way you train. If your practice is lazy, your performance will be lazy. If your practice is sharp, your performance has a fighting chance of being sharp too. So that's the psychology of effective practice. Set goals, train your weaknesses, measure your results, structure your time, and end with a win. It's not glamorous, but it's the difference between showing up ready and showing up hoping. In the next segment, we're going to take this even further. Because while effective practice builds skill, game-like practice builds performance. And unless your tournament opponents are going to politely step aside and let you have 6 attempts at double 8, you'd better be practicing under pressure. But don't worry, I'll give you ways to do it that don't involve your spouse yelling in your ear to take out the garbage. Although that is an option. Game-like practice. Your practice self and your match self are 2 completely different players. Practice you is loose, fluid, hitting triples like they're a magnet. Match you is tight, twitchy, and looks like you're throwing lawn darts after 3 pints. Nobody embodies this Jekyll and Hyde split more than Shane. In practice, Shane hits 180s like they're going out of style. He once strung together 4 in a row in his garage, but on league night, he scores 41, then 26, then spends the rest of the leg talking about his garage hot streak as if it's relevant. Spoiler, it's not. So what gives? Why do we look brilliant in practice and brittle in competition? Sports psychology has an answer. Because most practice doesn't resemble the conditions of competition. It's too predictable, too easy, too chimp-friendly. If your practice never simulates the chaos, noise, and pressure of a real match, then you're not actually preparing. You're just rehearsing a fantasy. This isn't just opinion. It's backed by decades of research. Back in 1979, psychologists discovered the contextual interference effect. When people practiced tasks in random, varied order, they performed worse during practice, but far better during tests. In other words, messy, frustrating, game-like practice creates skills that actually transfer. Think about darts. If you spend 30 minutes drilling only double 20, that's blocked practice. You'll get good at it in the moment, but your brain's not learning flexibility. In a real match, you don't get 30 attempts at the same shot. You get one dart, under pressure, at a number you weren't expecting. That's where interleaving and variability shine. They prepare your professor brain to adapt. Your chimp, of course, hates this. It wants blocked practice because blocked practice feels good. It's dopamine on tap. Look, I'm amazing at hitting 10 double 20s in a row. But the professor knows, yes, but you only hit them because you knew they were coming. You'll fall apart the second you're asked for a double 16. Now let's layer in the other missing ingredient, pressure. Because darts isn't played in a vacuum. It's played in pubs, on stages, with people watching, noise buzzing, and your inner chimp screaming louder than the crowd. If your practice is always relaxed, quiet, and private, then you've left the most important muscle untrained, your ability to perform under stress. Here are some ways to add pressure to your practice. 1. Simulated matches. Play against a practice partner or even against yourself with strict rules. If you don't finish in 3 darts, the leg is lost. 2. Ghost opponent. Set a scoring benchmark, say a 60 average. You're playing against the ghost, and every leg, you've got to beat that number. And 3. Consequences. Miss a double? Do 10 push-ups. Fail a checkout? Text Shane a compliment. You'll hit more doubles just to avoid the humiliation. Shane refuses to do this. He says, I don't like pressure in practice, it ruins my rhythm. Which is like saying, I don't like water in swimming practice, it ruins my strokes. Buddy, if you don't like pressure, you're in the wrong sport. Game-like practice isn't just about scoring. It's about training your brain to handle emotions. Every time you simulate stress in practice, whether it's a consequence drill, a mock crowd, or even just playing for pride against a mate, you're forcing your chimp to feel uncomfortable. And every time you keep the professor brain engaged in that discomfort, you're building the guardian of emotional regulation. You're teaching yourself, yes, the chimp is screaming, but I've been here before. I know what this feels like. I can still throw. That familiarity is gold on match night. Practice game-like drills. Here are 3 practical interleave drills you can try this week. 1. The triple to double drill. Jim Long taught me this game a couple of years ago in Nashville, and I've been playing it ever since. I really think that it's improved my game. It's effectively around the world on the doubles, but you've got to earn your double by hitting a triple first. For example, before you can take a shot at double 1, you've got to hit a triple 20. Nail it, then you get a chance at double 1. Next round, same deal. Triple 20 before double 2, and so on. You've only got 3 darts each turn. So, if you go up and miss the triple altogether, then you have to go back and start again. You must hit the triple and the double in the same shot. This drill forces your brain to do 2 things. A, prioritize hitting that triple early, ideally with the first dart, so you leave yourself a real chance at hitting the double, and B, practice the transition from triples into doubles, the exact kind of pressure shift that makes or breaks close matches. If hitting a triple then a double is too hard for you, you can always make adjustments. Say that you must hit a triple or you must hit 2 big numbers, like 2 20s, before you can hit the double. In this way, you're practicing keeping your dart straight. And at beginner levels, being able to keep your dart straight will give you a great opportunity to win. 2. 3 chances and out drills. Pick a checkout, let's say 90 sticks. You've got 3 chances to finish it. If you miss, tough luck. Move on to the new one. No do-overs, no safety nets. It's the practice version of one shot only, just like a real match. You may even be able to find a deck of cards with all of the different finishes on them so that you can practice your finishes at random by pulling a card from a deck. Another classic is the 1-2-1 game. Start on 121 and give yourself 9 darts to take it out. If you succeed, bump up to 122 and try again. Miss, drop down a number. The beauty of this drill is the built-in pressure. When you're on your 9th dart, staring at a must-hit double, the chimp is already sweating. There are plenty of variations on this game, but the common thread is this. You can fail and you can lose. That possibility is what creates real practice pressure, and that's exactly what you need if you want your A game to show up on league night. And 3, the audience of gremlins drill. Get a friend, partner, or even your phone to play distracting noises, music, crowd sounds, maybe even Shane muttering excuses. Train yourself to focus through the chaos. You might even wear a hoodie or have lights that change colors randomly. Anything that can break your focus and force you to regain it. When you make practice more game-like, when you add pressure, the battleground shifts. Gremlins, like distractions, stress, and self-doubt, show up more often. But that's a good thing in this situation. It means you get to train your guardian counterparts of controls, enjoyment, and confidence. For example, if you miss a big double with consequences on the line, your stress gremlin arrives. Breathe, reset, hit the next shot anyways. Your enjoyment guardian grows. Get rattled by fake crowd noise? Your distraction gremlin snickers. Stay locked in on the board? Your distraction controls guardian levels up. Every simulated stressor is an opportunity to reinforce your guardians. Game-like practice feels worse than blocked practice. You'll miss more. You'll feel less confident. You'll want to go back to comfy blocked drills where the chimp feels like a superstar. But here's the paradox. If practice feels good, you're probably not learning. If it feels awkward, frustrating, and even a little humiliating, you're learning exactly what you need to handle in competition. That's the contextual interference effect in action. Shane hates this. He says, but I don't like missing in practice. That's because Shane doesn't get it. Practice isn't about looking good. It's about getting better. If you're using game-like practice, take pride in the fact that you are doing what is required to make you better. I mentioned earlier that when you use game-like practice, it feels worse. You'll miss more. You'll feel less confident. Don't let those emotions bring down how you feel about your game. You're doing the right things. Be confident in that, and be sure that they will show up when you actually come to game night. So here's the takeaway. If your practice looks nothing like your matches, don't expect your matches to look like your practice. Add variety, add pressure, add chaos. Make your professor brain run the show while the chimp learns to cope. Because practice isn't a highlight reel. It's a rehearsal for battle. And if you train for battle, game night becomes just another practice session you've already survived. Next up, we'll go even deeper into the mental game of practice. Because practice isn't just where you sharpen your skills, it's also where you train your focus. Training focus in practice. Let's talk about focus. Most darts players only try to focus when they're on stage or under match pressure. That's like only trying to learn how to swim when you've already fallen in the deep end. Spoiler, you're going to drown. Practice isn't just about sharpening your throw, it's the perfect laboratory for training your focus. It's safe, it's controlled, and it's where you can test different strategies without the chimp going full meltdown mode. If you can't focus in practice, you've got no chance in competition. Here's a revelation that blows a lot of people's minds. Focus isn't just something you have or don't have. Focus is a skill. Like throwing at a triple 20, it gets better with repetition, structure, and drills. In sports psychology, researchers talk about attentional control, your ability to choose where to put your attention and keep it there. Throwing darts, for example, requires a narrow external focus, eyes on the target, mind on the throw. The problem? Your chimp is built for distractions. It notices noises, movement, stray thoughts, the sudden realization that you don't know where your phone is. Practice is where you train the professor brain to win the tug of war. Focus is easier to train in practice because the stakes are low. If you lose concentration and miss, no one's watching, no one's scoring against you, and no one's putting it on Facebook Live. That low-pressure environment lets you try strategies for locking in without the fear of public chimp tantrums. Focus drills for the practice room. Here are a few drills that actually train your attention while you throw. 1. The one dart drill. Every visit is just one dart. That's it. Throw one dart, stop, reset, and go again. This forces you to treat each throw like it's match point. The professor brain loves it. The chimp absolutely hates the pause. 2. The interleaved focus ladder. Write down a ladder of doubles. Say double 20, double 16, double 12, double 8, double 4, bull. Start at the bottom. If you hit your target within 3 darts, move up a rung. Miss? Roll a dice to see how far back down you slide. It's ruthless, but it forces you to reset your concentration every turn instead of drifting into chimp autopilot. And 3, The bullseye reset drill. Start every turn by aiming at the bull. If you hit, great. You've got 2 darts left to attack any double of your choice. If you miss, no matter where the dart lands, you must pause, reset, and throw your next dart at the bull again. This drill does 2 things. 1, it forces you to re-anchor your focus every single dart, instead of zoning out after the first throw. And 2, it trains you to recover mentally from a miss. Breathe, reset, refocus, instead of letting the chimp spiral. It's frustrating at first because the bull is unforgiving. But that's exactly why it's brilliant. It turns every dart into a fresh focus challenge instead of a lazy rhythm exercise. The quiet eye principle. There's another nugget from sports psychology that's worth stealing called the quiet eye effect, and we discussed this in a previous episode. Elite performers in sports like basketball, golf, and yes, aiming tasks hold their gaze on the target longer before executing. Longer, steadier fixation, better accuracy. In dart terms, that means keeping your eyes locked on the exact segment you want to hit with laser precision for a second or 2 before you throw. Practice is the perfect place to train this. Hold the gaze, breathe, then throw. Train your brain to find comfort in that stillness. Focus is a battleground for gremlins and guardians. Distraction gremlin, the phone buzz, the noisy room, the wandering thoughts, and the distraction control's guardian, the ability to shut it all out and lock in on the task. Practice is the only place you can afford to lose focus repeatedly and learn from it. Competition is the exam. Practice is the study hall. The players who treat focus as part of their training, not just an afterthought, are the ones who actually deliver under the lights. They're the players who win the events that you wish you were winning. So here's the takeaway. Practice isn't just about scoring averages. It's about sharpening your focus until it can withstand chaos. If you're only practicing mechanics, you're leaving half the game untrained. In the next segment, we're going to put it all together and look at the gremlins that creep into your practice room, neglect, distraction, and self-doubt, and how to fight them off with guardians like commitment, controls, and competence. Because if you don't deal with your gremlins in practice, you can rest assured they will show up on match night. Beating gremlins in the practice room. Here's the thing about practice. It's supposed to make you better. But if you're not careful, it can also make you worse. Why? Because the practice room is a jungle, crawling with gremlins who are just dying to hijack your session. Gremlins love practice time because they know the stakes are low. They can sneak in, wreck your focus, and convince you that you're working hard while you're actually just feeding them snacks. Let's shine a flashlight on the worst offenders. Gremlin 1, neglect. This gremlin whispers, "Hey, skip practice today. You've been working hard. 1 night off won't matter." 1 night becomes 2, then a week, and suddenly you've practiced about as much as Shane has flossed his teeth this year. Neglect thrives on excuses. I'll practice after dinner. You won't. I'll make it up tomorrow. You won't. I'll count league night as practice. You shouldn't. The guardian answer? Commitment. Create a schedule. Write it down. Treat it like a job shift you can't skip. Commitment grows when you practice even when you don't feel like it. That's where you build resilience and discipline. Gremlin 2, distractions. This one's easy to spot. You're at the hockey, you throw a few darts, and suddenly you're scrolling TikTok, half watching Netflix, and wondering if you left the laundry in the machine. The chimp brain loves distractions because they're shiny and easy. Shane is a master here. He once paused mid-practice to film an unboxing video of his new darts, which he then used for exactly 1 day before declaring they didn't feel right. The guardian that beats distractions is controls. Eliminate temptations before you start. Phone on airplane mode, TV off, music only if it helps you lock in, a specific goal written on paper so you know when you're finished. Your distraction controls guardian is all about narrowing your environment until only one thing matters: the dart, the target, and the throw. Gremlin number 3, self-doubt. Self-doubt shows up in the middle of a bad patch and says, "See, you can't hit doubles in practice. You'll never hit them in a match." And just like that, the chimp brain spirals. But here's the kicker. Practice is the perfect place to miss. It's literally the safest environment in the world to fail. If you never miss in practice, you're not stretching. The guardian answer here is confidence. Not fake swagger, but real confidence built on evidence. Every time you hit a tough checkout, track it. Every time you succeed in a drill, record it. Build a log of proof that you can hit those shots. That way, when self-doubt pipes in, the professor brain can say, "Actually, here's 47 times I've nailed that exact checkout in practice." Gremlin 4, fatigue. This one's sneaky. Fatigue doesn't always show up as yawning or sore muscles. Sometimes it's just sloppy mechanics, lazy aim, or going through the motions. Practicing while exhausted is like studying while half asleep. Technically, you're doing it, but none of it sticks. Shane's version of this? He practices for 3 hours straight, then proudly announces, "I'm building endurance." Meanwhile, his last 2 hours looked like he was throwing darts with oven mitts. The Guardian answer is energy. That means short, sharp, focused sessions. 30 minutes of locked-in practice beats 3 hours of chimp flinging. It also means taking care of your body, hydration, rest, posture, so you've got the physical energy to give practice your full attention. Practical anti-gremlin strategies. Now, let's arm you with some Professor Brain-approved tools. 1. Commitment contracts. Set fixed practice times. Tell a friend, post it online, or use an app to track streaks. Accountability feeds commitment. 2. Distractions detox. Create a ritual. Phone in another room. Lights set. Maybe even a practice playlist. Condition your brain to know when this ritual starts, it's focus time. Number 3. Confidence log, or the cookie jar. Keep a notebook where you can record small wins, doubles hits, checkouts completed, drills conquered. Flip through it when self-doubt comes calling. And 4. Energy sprints. Use a timer. Go all in for 20 to 30 minutes, then stop. High-quality intensity builds skill. Zombie chucking builds nothing. Gremlins are basically your chimp's best friend. They love comfort, shortcuts, and excuses. Guardians are the professor's allies, disciplined, structured, and deliberate. Every practice session is a jungle battle. Skip practice, neglect wins. Show up, commitment grows. Scroll your phone, distractions win. Stay locked in, control grows. Spiral after misses, self-doubt wins. Reset and refocus, confidence wins. Grind through exhaustion, fatigue wins. Train smart, energy grows. The dartboard is keeping score on accuracy, but your brain is keeping score on Gremlin versus Guardians. That's the real game in the practice room. You have the opportunity to make your Guardians stronger so that your Gremlins don't have as much control over you when it comes to a match. If you let Gremlins run wild in practice, they'll follow you into competition. If neglect wins in training, you'll freeze on league night because you're unprepared. If distractions rule the Aki, you'll crumble when someone coughs in the crowd. If self-doubt grows fat at home, it'll devour you on stage. But if you train your Guardians in practice, they'll show up when it counts. Confidence, controls, commitment, energy, those are the allies you want beside you under the lights. So that's the practice jungle, crawling with gremlins, guarded by your professor's army. Beat them here, and you'll be ready to beat them in competition. In the next segment, we're going to tackle the holy grail of practice, transfer. How do you make sure your brilliant practice game actually shows up when the scoreboard's live? Practice to performance transfer. Here's a question that every darts player has wrestled with. Why can I play like a genius in practice, but fall apart in matches? It's the mystery of darts. You throw 180s all night in your garage, but when league night starts, you can't buy a triple. This gap between practice and performance is one of the biggest frustrations in darts. And it's not about mechanics. Your throw doesn't magically disappear between your garage and the pub. It's about psychology. The mental state you're in during practice is nothing like the one you're in during competition. Psychologists call this state-dependent learning, the idea that what you learn in one state of mind is recalled best in the same state. If you practice calm, relaxed, and comfy, your brain wires those skills to that state. But when you compete stressed, anxious, and under pressure, your brain can't pull those comfy skills off the shelf. It's like studying for an exam while lying on the couch in pajamas, then trying to recall the answers in a crowded exam hall with a ticking clock. The knowledge is there, but the state doesn't match, so recall falls apart. That's why practice has to simulate competition. If the states don't match, your skills won't transfer. Here's how it plays out. In practice, your chimp is chilling. No pressure, no stakes, just dopamine from hitting good shots. The professor gets to run the show, analyzing, adjusting, learning. On match night, the chimp panics. What if I miss? What if I lose? Everyone's watching. Suddenly, it hijacks your attention, floods you with adrenaline, and throws your mechanics out the window. The professor, shoved aside, sits helplessly while the chimp reenacts a Greek tragedy at the Aki. Unless you've prepared for this. Unless you've trained in practice with enough pressure, consequences, and routines that the chimp recognizes the situation and the professor can still stay engaged. Bridging the gap. Practical strategies. Here are some evidence-based ways to close the practice performance gap. 1. Pressure drills. Build consequences into practice. Miss a double? Do 10 push-ups. Fail a checkout? Restart the drill from 0. It doesn't have to be a physical punishment. Even silly consequences like texting Shane a compliment can create real pressure. 2. Simulated matches. Set up practice games where everything mimics competition. Scoring, routines, pace of play, even someone watching. Your brain learns, I've been here before. 3. Emotional rehearsal. This is where visualization comes in. Imagine yourself under match pressure. Heart racing, palms sweaty. And then rehearse your response. Breathe, focus, stick to your pre-throw routine. By practicing the feeling of pressure, you inoculate yourself against it. 4. Pre-performance routines. This one's huge. Research across sports shows that consistent pre-performance routines stabilize attention and calm nerves. If you always breathe, plant, and set your eyes the same way in practice, your body will default to that in competition, even when the chimp is screaming. And pre-performance routines can be executed exactly the same in practice as they are in competition, so practice them deliberately. 5. Match mode practice. Dedicate some practice nights to only match-style play. No drilling, no repetition, just legs of 501 against a partner or a ghost opponent. Track the stats separately from your mechanics sessions. If you want your practice game to show up in competition, you've got to make practice look and feel more like competition. It's not enough to groove mechanics in a comfy environment. You need to bring in stress, pressure, unpredictability, and consequences. That's what wires your professor brain to stay in control while your chimp learns to cope. Because if you don't, if you just keep throwing 180s in your garage, don't be surprised when your 90 average magically turns into 52 when it actually counts. So that's the secret to practice performance transfer. Train your brain in the state it'll need on match night. Next up, we'll talk about consistency, because it's one thing to show up with your A game once in a while. It's another thing to bring it every night. And consistency, as we'll see, isn't about perfection. It's about stacking micro wins until your guardians are bulletproof. Let's talk about consistency, because every player knows what it feels like to play brilliantly once. One night where you can't miss. The board looks like a dinner plate, and even Shane briefly convinces himself he's destined for alley-pally. The problem? Consistency. Being able to bring that game back again tomorrow, and next week, and in league playoffs. Consistency isn't about being perfect every night. It's about creating a mental framework that keeps your level steady even when conditions change. In other words, it's less about mechanics and more about psychology. Consistency is a mental skill. Sports psychologists describe consistency as the ability to reduce performance variability under pressure. It's not just about always hitting 140s. It's about reducing the swings between your highs and lows. The chimp brain hates this idea. The chimp wants fireworks, massive highs, emotional roller coasters, and dramatic slumps. It feeds on streaks, both good and bad. One missed double, chimp meltdown. 180, chimp struts like it just won the world championship. The professor brain, on the other hand, loves consistency. It knows that stability wins matches. It knows that boring, repeatable routines, steady focus, and composure in misses are the true foundation of long-term success. Here's where the magic comes in. Consistency grows from micro wins. A micro win is a small, achievable success that reinforces your guardians. It might be hitting 7 out of 10 doubles in practice, recovering calmly after missing a checkout, sticking to your pre-throw routine no matter what. These small victories might not look glamorous, but they're how you wire consistency into your brain. Every micro win tells your professor brain, see, we can do this. Over time, those tiny wins stack into the kind of mental resilience that holds steady on match night. There's a virtuous cycle here. Consistency builds confidence, and confidence reinforces consistency. Each time you show up steady, your confidence grows. Each time your confidence grows, it makes it easier to show up steady again. Sports psych research backs this up. Work on self-efficacy showed that confidence is built primarily on mastery experiences, proof that you can do the thing. Micro wins in practice are those mastery experiences. But the opposite is also true. If you let your self-doubt gremlin run wild after misses, you create a vicious cycle of inconsistency. That's why you have to deliberately seek out and track micro wins. Here are ways to build consistency through small wins. 1. Set process goals. Instead of only measuring outcomes, example, did I win the leg, measure processes, example, did I stick to my pre-throw routine every time. Process goals give you micro wins even when the scoreboard isn't pretty. 2. Track your ratios. Don't obsess over perfection. Instead, track percentages. I hit 6 out of 10 doubles today is a micro win that proves progress. 3. Celebrate resets. Anytime you miss, but successfully reset, breathe, and refocus, that's a micro win. Consistency isn't about never missing, it's about never spiraling. And 4. End with success. Like we said earlier, finish practice on a win. It locks in a positive memory and makes your brain eager to return. Sometimes I'll end my practice on 3 perfectly thrown darts. It doesn't matter where they land, just that I threw them the way that I want to. This is a process goal and helps dial in my throw before I log off the board. Here's where the payoff shows up. When you train consistency and practice through micro wins, you don't panic under pressure. You don't spiral after a miss. You don't need perfection to feel secure. Instead, you have a stack of proof that you can handle misses, recover, and keep throwing steady. It doesn't mean you'll never slump. Even pros have off nights. But the dips will be shallower and the recoveries faster. That's what consistency really looks like. Not never failing, but never collapsing. Here's the part nobody wants to admit. The secret to consistency is boring. It's routine. It's repetitions. It's logging micro wins day after day until the guardians outweigh your gremlins. It's not sexy. It doesn't make great TikTok videos. But it's the stuff champions are made of. So that's the mental side of consistency. It's not about chasing perfection. It's about stacking small wins until your guardians are strong enough to keep your game steady. Here's the golden rule of every practice plan. If you can't describe what you practiced and why, it doesn't count. Your chimp will tell you that just throwing is practice. Your professor brain knows better. Real practice has goals, structure, feedback, and endings that build guardians instead of gremlins. So after every session, ask yourself, what was my goal? Did I hit it? Which guardian got stronger? All right, let's hit the recap bullseye. Today we went deep into the psychology of practice. Not just what to throw, but how to train your brain while you're training your arm. Here are the big takeaways. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. What you rehearse is what you'll repeat. If you practice comfort zone darts, that's exactly what will show up on match night. Deliberate beats mindless. Clear goals, structured drills, and feedback loops build guardians. Wandering to the board and just throwing builds gremlins. Game like practice. Blocked drills make your chimp feel good, but varied, pressure-filled interleaf practice is what actually transfers to competition. Focus is trainable. Practice is the safest place to sharpen attention, rehearse routines, and tame the wandering chimp. Don't wait until you're under the lights to try concentrating. Gremlins live in the practice room. Neglect, distraction, self-doubt, and fatigue all thrive there. Beat them with commitment, controls, confidence, and energy. Transfer is the holy grail. State-dependent learning means you'll only play under pressure the way you've practiced under pressure. Simulate competition, and the professor brain will thank you. Consistency is built on micro wins. Each small success, a checkout hit, a calm reset, a routine stuck to, stacks into steady performance. You don't have to train for hours. You just need structure, purpose, and guardians leading the way. So what's the final message of today's episode? Practice isn't about looking good in your garage. It's about preparing for the chaos of real competition. If your practice doesn't resemble match night, don't expect match night to resemble your practice. So until then, take a breath, trust your throw, and for the love of tungsten, don't let the monkey drive the bus. This has been Dart Brain. I'm Clint Clarkson. Until next time, stay focused, throw with purpose, and train your dart brain.